Good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain. So.
Well, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Kayode Okikule.
That word again, yeah, beautiful. Amaya Makene, good morning and welcome.
Well, this morning we're actually starting off from the nation's capital, Abuja. And I'm going to start off by saying that I'm quite worried about this year. And it's not to put fears in the minds of anybody, but, you know, the year started on a very interesting note when it comes to labor matters. So you had the NLC president, Aibo Waba, in that message to workers across the country telling, especially workers in 7 states, that they can go on strike because of minimum wage implementation. Now, this is a law that was signed as far back as 2019 or in 2022. So that's on the one hand. But then yesterday, we saw Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria, members of that union actually protesting in the National Assembly. And it's quite ironic because you see that, I mean, that law was actually processed in the National Assembly, right? And then I'm talking about the minimum wage law.
Just to underscore, the Vice President, beg your pardon, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate was there when it was signed.
Exactly. So it was something, it was their baby of sorts. It was something they had to midwife for Nigerians. I mean, put in their efforts. You know how vital, I mean, their work is in the National Assembly. So they went through that whole process, 2019. That particular bill was signed into law and it became a thing. But guess what? They've not fully implemented that, according to the protests by those workers. They've not fully implemented it for the parliamentary workers. And it's quite ironic, really. I mean, we don't understand what's happening in those 7 states, I should say, but even more puzzling is for the workers in the National Assembly that midwifed that particular law. They are also...
So, wait, what are you going to say about ASU?
I know,
The
right?
government has signed agreements with them several times. They didn't force government to, in many of those instances. They deliberately, willingly signed it. And then you get to hear, well, when they signed it, they just signed it because they were going to exit. There was no money there in the first instance. How come they signed it? So I think the members are, this is what people experience on a regular basis, which just leaves you wondering, how do people willingly sign certain things and then you don't just implement it? So it's an interesting scenario here.
You know, just before we came on, you know, that joke about the Electoral Act Amendment bill that had errors, and you're thinking, so is that why there were errors in it? Maybe, you know,
because some were saying, look, remember us, we're here.
Yeah, so you have to look at us. But it's quite sad, and I think we actually need to look deeper. If you have 7 states, you know, states like Zamfara, I mean, that have not paid the minimum wage as fully as they ought to. You have parliamentary staff workers.
And that's one part of it.
Oh, yes.
Remember, NLC also said, look, we're not exactly happy with government's decision. Their plan to remove subsidy, because when that happens, they plan to also down tools. So
I think it's all supposed to be about the kind of conversations we're having and our commitment to keeping those agreements. Now, this that you're seeing on the screen, excuse me, wouldn't be a normal thing if agreements brokered were seen through in the first place. Okay, so the person, the Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria, was saying that management had earlier identified the supplementary budget of 2021 as one amongst various sources of funding the MOU they had with the management of the National Assembly. And they are now amazed that the supplementary budget and environment of the 2021 fiscal appropriation have become the source of funding items not captured in the MOU, including end-of-year bonus and promotion areas.
Additionally, that's about what, 8 months unpaid allowances, and they say 15 months, I think they call it compeculiar allowances.
Compeculiar allowance. I'm coming there, including 6 months hazard allowance to National Assembly staff. What kind of long list? Now, the Minister of Finance had they wrote to, the clerk of the National Assembly had written to the minister, and the minister had responded by saying, well, while acknowledging your letter, the National Minimum Wage Act passed by the National Assembly and accepted to by Mr. President binds all employers to pay the minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Now, here's the interesting part. The National Assembly, being a statutory agency with financial autonomy, is expected to implement the minimum wage from its statutory allocations, which are released to it monthly. question then is, who's not doing his job?
Or her job.
Or her job.
Or their jobs.
And is this why those bills, because I think maybe we just seem to be oversimplifying it, but when we look at it, the errors contained in the bill, including the previous times when the president had said he wasn't going to assent, what some would call clerical errors. Some commas here, some 21 instead of 25 here, and all those things. Maybe this is part of the reason. You quoted it the other time. 15 months arrears.
But it's not justifiable if that's the reason.
I agree it is not
justifiable.
justifiable.
That as reason as to why those errors are there, because it doesn't speak well of them in the first place. Because, look, even before this scenario came through, some of those errors in previous bills have always popped up. So who knows if any of those errors will let them know to force them to pay that.
So some of them are cross-referencing errors. So, I mean, even if you are typed and
the
typed
quality
well,
of the people who are there, that's what that speaks to.
And just to put Nigerians on notice, you know, I said earlier that I'm quite worried about this year. So you have the subsidy issue.
Yeah.
NLC essentially at the national level prepping to take major action. Then you have NLC across states that have not fully implemented the minimum wage. And I should just mention those states. According to Aibawaba, you have Zamfara, Taraba, Benue, Kogi, Cross River, Abia, and Imo State. So that's on the other hand, right? Then just yesterday, thankfully, the midwives and nurses in Lagos shelved that strike. So that's another one, hopefully not waiting to happen. Don't forget resident doctors as well. ASU, ASUP. I can go on and on. So honestly, I don't know what this year holds for us, but I think now is the time for governments at all levels to get their acts right.
Add to that the fact that it's a political year. I'm sorry, maybe it may sound like bad news. The issue you raised about the removal of subsidy, that conversation, Chamberlain, that government was having with Labour, how far so far? They were supposed to come to some agreement about whether or not the subsidy should be removed. How far so far with that one? Or it's one of those issues?
Well, you know, you don't need a crystal ball to tell you that all of these issues will not be resolved this year. And whoever is going to succeed the president will inherit some of these challenges. That's because we saw it before. And when this president came into power, there were a series of protests. It almost knocked them out of their stride. They were wondering, well, how come there's here, almost everywhere? And so it wasn't resolved. Even ASU was part of those issues. We're still talking about that today. And we will tomorrow. And maybe the next year. Much as, yes, you'd like to see all of these things addressed, but there's some very fundamentals that government keeps missing almost all the time, and you keep asking yourselves, how do these things always happen? So, but
we have our papers now, thanks to Mr. Tony.
Yeah.
So we'll get into it very soon.
All right, so should we begin? No.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay, let's begin. I don't know.
I'm spoiled for choice right now.
Yeah. I'm spoiled for choice.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to begin with the Guardian newspaper.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
So, Tinubu confirms presidential ambition. Says, I'm a kingmaker. I want to be king.
Oh.
That's the front page of the Guardian newspaper, guys, if you want to take a look at that. And it has a number of writers. Tinubu, I've informed Buhari of my lifelong ambition to be president. He has what it takes to be president, says YCE Secretary General. Coalition of 57 youth groups endorses Osinbajo as Buhari's successor. Only PDP can rescue Nigeria, says Diri Wike. While PDP must zone Nigeria's presidency to the south, as ascribed to Kwankwaso. That story is on the front page, continues on page 2 of the paper this morning. So many questions to answer, so many issues to raise about this. But then there are those who are saying it's one thing to have a presidential ambition. It's just an ambition. Is it going to be contesting? That's another issue altogether.
So you have to trigger that ambition.
Well, I don't even know where to begin with that conversation.
You know, there's a potential energy, there's then the kinetic.
Here you go again. I didn't do any sciences, please. Thank you very much. All I did was
see.
journalism.
I see.
Yes, that's the Guardian
Come for
newspaper.
classes after the show.
That's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune for you. Well, that's the front page of the Guardian. There you go. But the Nigerian Tribune is next, and it leads with the 2023 presidency. I will contest, I have told Buhari, Tinubu.
Did he use that word? I will contest?
So, well, he said, I have informed the president of my ambition, and... But, hey,
What does that mean? Come on.
I mean, hey, so...
He knows what he's doing. No mind.
Okay.
It was quite an interesting interview, I must say. I mean, we have that video up on our YouTube page, so you can catch what exactly happened.
Even if you don't even want to search, just go to channelstv.com. It's the top story for now.
Take a look at the riders. Declines comment on Oshimbajo's ambition. Wants President, National Assembly to review Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Assures on APC National Convention. It's a page 2 read. Should be an interesting one. And that protest at the National Assembly makes its way to the front page. And you see, pay us our MOU. That's how the Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigerian Workers actually captioned their protest yesterday at the National Assembly. I imagine if National Assembly was in session or if they had resumed, this would have disrupted the activities. So hopefully that will be resolved before then. A couple of other stories, but let me take this one that might interest a lot of Nigerians. High cost of food. Most farmers now in IDP camps can't go to farms.
Oh my God.
Stakeholders. So is that perhaps why the Borno State governor said, you know what, from December the 31st, we shall have an end to a major part of this. Page 13 read. A couple of other stories on that front page. It's actually full. And don't forget, Nigeria has a match later today, so definitely we're previewing that one for you in the course of the day. Let's leave there for the Tribune.
New Telegraph next, guys. 2023 presidency. Tinubu informs Buhari of ambition. Says he will make his intention known to Nigerians after consultations. Vows to turn things around. You know, when you hear politics, the politicians say certain things, but wait, don't Nigerians know already now? But he hasn't told Nigerians yet, so don't let the cat out of the bag yet. So, but you equally see this one, guys. This is very interesting. While you see Nigeria gets another 907,000 COVID-19 vaccines from Greece, FAN nabs 90 over fake COVID-19 test results, thefts, others at Lagos, Abuja airports. NCDC issues new advisory on Lassa fever as Nigeria records 102 deaths. You wonder, fake COVID-19, what are people thinking?
You know, we can take a whole day actually talking about that, just that one.
Okay.
That whole fake provision, the vaccine cards and the rest.
Yeah.
I mean, we could take more than a day. But for that Greece donation, you know the first question that comes to mind naturally?
I hope it's not expired.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and I think it's important to actually perhaps put that out.
Let
so
me add
people
this
know.
to that conversation. Who knows if there might be more coming through. This is above the lead story here on the front page of New Telegraph. FG malls compulsory jabs for private sector workers.
It's still a molly.
Remember, they tried it in the public sector. What became of that? Are they giving everybody in the public sector?
It's still becoming.
And guess what they say here? They are saying that they say they saw a memo. New Telegraph is reporting that, saying they're contemplating that such that, to the extent that if you don't take it in the private sector, you lose your job.
I think that's what's meant to be happening in the public sector as well.
But did it happen? Is
Is it happening, right?
And now they say in the private sector, you lose your job.
I think
Really?
you don't lose your job in the public sector. Your pay is held. I was at the PHC recently, and I just saw a guy saunter around, and one of the nurses there said, "This guy has come to take the jab because his salary has been withheld."
But you know, interesting times we're in, really, especially when you see what's playing out with Djokovic. You know, with the whole country Australia. And you know, there'll still always be ethical questions about compulsion and the rest. So clearly interesting days ahead.
It's not a straightforward matter as they're making it look, because if you have to compel people to go take it, as opposed to encouraging people to go take it, incentivizing them to go take it. Because look, right here in this country, there's no, I stand corrected, guys. Somebody tell me, is there anywhere you go and take the COVID test free without paying 51,100 naira or at least 50,000 naira? In other climes, it's free in many of those places. I mean, they encourage you, go take it.
You get even
kits
free of charge.
In fact, these days in some of those areas, when you take it, they deliver the results straight the same day. The same day. But here, in fact, sometimes you're compelled to take it twice. They say, well, if you're taking your jabs once, you do 2 tests. If you're taking your jab twice, you do 1 test for those who are traveling. And then if you miss one of those days of those tests, the 50,100 naira you pay is gone. Then you have to do another test.
So people are cashing out big time on this.
This is what they're doing. And then you want to tell people in the practice, you make sure you go, come on, guys.
Well, I guess we'll wait to see.
It's not going to work this way. It just will not work.
Let me assume that is something that is known, because for God's sake, when we're talking about private sector, don't forget we're also talking about micro, small, and medium enterprises. Where they're going to get 51,000 naira, that's not even up to the entire capital of the business.
Now, do you know why people are getting fake vaccine cards? They don't want to get, how would they, they need to know what people like. Isn't it the same government that wants to give people 5,000 naira for transport fare, and then you want them to go cough out 50,000, 100 naira for COVID tests?
Let me assume that, government knows that that's what's happening. You know, it's really, really important for us to continue to contemplate, because on the one hand, there are those who have to take it because they have to travel.
And some say if you're not feeling well.
And some, okay, maybe because you're not feeling well. But then,
what part of what was supposed
was encouraged?
Hey, I wasn't feeling well, and I was referred to go pay for the tests, to get tested.
There are several cases. So on paper, it's one thing about this not feeling well matter. But look, guys, that's not.
And then you talked about Djokovic. Don't forget his first name, Novak.
Good morning, with a K, not a C.
Or an X.
Novak Djokovic. Okay.
Novak, don't vax Djokovic.
Mark, good morning.
I didn't hear that. Did you guys hear about the guys? Good morning, guys. Did you hear about the guy who became popular as a result of the outbreak of COVID? His name was COVID. His name is COVID, but his own COVID is spelled with a K, so maybe that wouldn't count in Novak's case. It's worse when you say Novak's, Novak's case. Oh, well, look at this. I'm looking at Daily Trust for you, and they have this one. Tinubu to Buhari, I want to succeed you. That's how they simply put it. Says nothing stops Kingmaker from becoming king. Nobody will get our ticket on a silver platter. That's what APC is saying. What about a platter of gold if silver won't do? Look at this one. There can't be only one aspirant. That's from the pro-Oshibajo group. And look at this. It's a smart move. That's from Don. So you might want to read the details on page 5. Well, you can bet that if all the papers have it on their front page, or almost all the papers have it on their front page, you know what we'll be sinking our teeth into. So you might want to stay glued and hear what the bookmakers have to say about this. Take a look at what what else we're looking at on the front page. Look at that picture. It's supposed to be telling a story as well. And it says commuters stranded on Kano streets as tricycle riders embarked on strike yesterday. Keke riders lose over 300 million naira in one-day strike in Kano. So it's not just parliamentary workers that are going on strike. Keke riders too are not happy. It's a page 18 read there. Look at this. Kaduna parents, teachers reject 4-day work policy. Now, you have to ask why, whoever argued with working less and still earning what they're earning. So you know that there's certainly a catch to this one. You might want to flip to page 6 to see why Kaduna parents and teachers reject 4-day work policy. And Super Eagles begin 19th AFCON campaign with first test. Yes, we understand here to face Egypt. Oh dear. Yesterday my husband said, there's more Salah in Egypt too. How are we going to do it? I say, well, who knows? We haven't been written off just yet. Page 39 will give you details. And then you have a number of other stories at the bottom. This one should concern anyone who should be concerned about this. Standard Chartered to shut half of Nigerian branches. It's a story making the front page. And Nigeria-Greece signed MOU on economy security. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Flip to the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Its interest, well, the major story is a little different from previous. Electricity, FG's PPI, Siemens back on track. That's according to investigation. Remember, we raised that issue with Mr. Garbashew last week. And the riders are Siemens.
This is before that agency comes to tell us what's going on, or what?
Well, at least it's an investigation.
Oh.
So, okay.
Siemens
to deliver 10 mobile substations, 10 mobile transformers in 2022. Power Minister to provide technical direction. Initiative to develop over 200 projects for execution. Additional 2,000 megawatt delivery in 18 months at $2.3 billion. Africa Finance Corporation emerges advisor. Attack on Total Energy's pipeline shuts down 504 megawatts LNG power plant. Find that story on page 5. And right under the picture of that visit to the president by APC's national leader, 2023, it's my lifelong ambition to become president, scribed to Tinubu. Says, I'm kingmaker that wants to become king. That story is on page 28. You know, that story is like the size of an elephant. You cut it whichever angle, whichever side you see.
Hey, don't forget the story on top of the nameplate. Eagles go for Pharaoh's juggler.
Yeah, it's also behind.
Yeah. Oh, it's on the back page.
As well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. very quickly. Mr. says, Maria, what's the meaning of this? I'm a top management of a blue chip company. For God's sake, something is not right about these potato chips. And Mrs. out of sight says, I'm sorry, dear. Do you want the chips in blue color?
You make your blue chips?
Well, take a look at News Direct. That's what is the red.
Is he trying to say Mr. is in Bushman?
And the lead story for that daily is in red, it's not blue. 2023 for the Nigerian News Direct. Tinubu briefs Buhari on presidential ambition. As you would expect, that's something you find on every front page this morning. Shows you how big that story is, as well as some other stories. And by the way, as we count down to that match between the Pharaohs of Egypt and Super Eagles, they're asking, does Nigeria have a Moses?
Let's go.
But we have a Musa, so hey, we have a Moses. So
let's
we're
go.
Good to go.
Let's do it. We can.
That's Nigerian News Direct.
Look at Daily Independence then. 2023 elections. I have confidence, capacity to rule Nigeria. Tinubu. So, point blank, right there. The Daily Independence. Mark. Okay, well, if you take a look at the leadership also, well, they did something different here today, though. Look at that. Governors disagree with PMB, insist on state police, say military police overwhelmed by security challenges, to upgrade vigilantes, local guards, regional security outfits as interim measure. Ex-servicemen, security experts differ on state police. So this is going to be, it will keep raging, this argument as to reorganization of the police.
And if I could just mention, there's something there just at the bottom of the front page. NLC, health workers, knock bill to outlaw strike.
I thought I was the only one that said
Because that's the bargaining chip they have anyway.
To outlaw strike. But doesn't that tell you something?
Aren't they going to work with the same parliamentary staff to outlaw strike?
No. I mean, you know what?
I can't believe this.
It's a bargaining chip, not a blue chip.
They don't want people to be robots. The outlaw strike. Take whatever we give to you.
or else.
Because if you strike, you're gone.
But interesting to see.
Oh, that bill, I don't know if it will see the light of day, as they say. Well, that ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Yeah, you can write us. Let us know what you think about some of these headlines that you have heard us read out. We'll be back in a moment. Do stay with us.
In the last few weeks, the former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, has not hidden a desire to heed calls for him to vie for the office of the president. And so, meeting with the president, whom he hopes to succeed, issues of the party's upcoming convention and security was central as he finally breaks the ice on his intention to pick the presidential ticket.
It's a categorical declaration. You've gotten that truth from me that I've informed the Mr. President of my ambition.
Earlier in November 2021, the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress declared that he was still consulting with political stakeholders.
I will still effectively and widely consult, particularly brainstorm with my friends and find a way to come out, find a date to come out openly and tell Nigerians.
Now, the APC chieftain doggedly moves to clinch the ticket, unconcerned about any other contender, particularly after the president has not raised any objections.
I don't want to discuss individuals now. I must discuss myself. I have the confidence, the vision, the capacity to build on the foundation of Mr. President and turn Nigeria better. I've done that with commitment and unyielding, in Lagos State. You've seen that experience and the capacity to turn things around, and that is what we are doing. The confusion, the drift of the past in PDP is being corrected, and you can't, take away from that.
The former Lagos State governor also encourages the executive and the legislature to review the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, promising that the outcome of such review will be complied with. Now, being tagged the kingmaker instead of the king is apparently not deterring the APC chieftain from pursuing his ambition in spite of anyone's perception. As a matter of fact, he promises that he will declare officially to Nigerians while assuring that the APC National Convention will certainly hold. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, it's moved from the realm of speculation. It is no longer speculation. It's now the news. Former Governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has declared his intention to run for president. How does that change the dynamics within his party? Well, we asked his party members this morning, and one of them is in our studio. Fuad Oki is a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress. You're welcome to our studios here in Abuja.
Good morning, Mokbe.
So finally, the cat is out of the bag. We're no longer wondering what is in the bag. How did you receive this?
Well, I am not surprised. Not an inch surprised, because it's a build-up to something. And we've been on this, I think, over 2 years now. So the issue of will he run, will he not run, when? So now we know it's now. We know it's running. As you said, that now we know what's in the bag. I think the next 1 or 2 weeks will tell us exactly what he's up to. Wanting to run, or I've told the president that I'll run. For me, it's just, a prep. And he's promised to address Nigerians. So I'll wait and see exactly, what is coming to tell Nigerians. It is then we'll begin to look at, his aspiration.
What do you mean by what he's up to? Or what is up to how?
I can stand up tomorrow to say I want to run, for the office of president. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. You'll need to know what I'm coming with. There are so many questions to be answered, which will speak to capacity, which will speak to ability, and some other factors. So for me, we are still at the preparatory stage.
How does this change the dynamics within your party, though? I mean, everyone knows, and he accepts as well, that he is a kingmaker within the All Progressives Congress. So now that the kingmaker wants to be king, how is that being received by those who already want to be king as well?
They are different. I have been in this business for quite some time, and because I have been in a position to midwife several elections does not mean I'll wake up one day and say I want to be president. So being a kingmaker is something different. Being an aspirant, you see, in this game you have categories. You have what I call, before you become a candidate you must contest, so you are a contestant. Before you become a contestant, you are a contender and a pretender. So you move from being a pretender of wanting to be to wanting to contend, as an aspirant, and then wanting to contest, and then becoming candidate.
Well, certainly some people will say that you cannot call Senator Tinubu, or shall I say Asiwaju Tinubu, a pretender. Some people will say
in this business, that's where listen, Mokba, in this business, I'm telling you the way it is. A pretender, when we're all speculating, will he not? Is he pretending? Does he have something else to do? Now he's contending.
Oh, he's a contender now.
Yes.
But he was once.
Yes, all
he never
of them.
Skipped the stage
there
of
are
the
several.
pretender?
There are several others that are still contemplating. Should I throw my hat in the ring? Am I good enough? What do I want? They are pretenders. Once they clearly come out to say, I want to be, then they are contender. And they move from there to contest the party primaries and then become or not become the party's candidate. So being a kingmaker is something. Throwing your hat in the ring, it's another different ball game.
That's why I ask, how does this change the dynamics of your party?
Well, for now, you see, it's just one person now that have clearly come out to say, I am going to run. I will not begin to look at them all until I begin to see another person, maybe in the next couple of days, maybe in another 1 or 2 weeks, coming out to do same.
Okay, let me put it this way. Since you say that there are categories and there are pretenders, there's still lots of pretenders right now.
Lots out there.
So how does this, does it shut up the pretenders? Does it give them the courage to come out and become contenders as well? What happens to
Time
those?
will tell. Again, time will tell. I will not jump at saying, oh, this. I'll wait a couple of more days. I'll wait another 1 week or another 2 weeks. But what he has done now is bail the cat. What you say in a co-balance, that any liar coawo. That's what he has done.
To say if you're brave enough.
I mean, there is.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah, it's not changing anything as of today. It will begin to change some things, possibly turn it around, or otherwise in the next couple of days, maybe 1 week.
so you accept and you agree that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is no ordinary
It's a big
person.
fish.
It's a big fish. So in many ways, it does change the dynamics for those who would be contenders
For
who would
me,
have loved to
again,
throw their
for
hat
me,
in the ring.
Again, for me, not now. And you know why? Prior to yesterday, there have been several pretenders on the turf.
Prior to it yesterday. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will also want to see how many of the pretenders will follow suit. It's then I begin to say, oh, this is obvious, he's meeting with the president and his categorical statement that he is going to run has changed the dynamics. Until then, for me, I will not, I will just look at, some other things around the contest.
Such as?
What do I want from a Nigerian president, or what do I want from the next Nigerian president? Against the background of where we have found ourselves, the issue of security or insecurity, the issue of economy, what are we doing, especially about the weak and the vulnerable in our midst? What policy framework is that man coming up with? What are his pro-poor, a framework? When you look at the figures of unemployment, when you look at the figures of our youths that are hopeless, you want to interrogate very, very deeply who you want the next president to be.
So he says that he is building on the foundation set by President Muhammadu Buhari. You seem to think that that foundation is not very strong.
Truth be told, today in Nigeria, and that's why I said I'll want to wait to see other pretenders you may want to call gladiators come out. I belong to the APC, but we must speak truth to power. Today, in some part of the country, you can boastfully say, I want to build on the achievements or accomplishments of this administration and this president. In other zones of this country, they will stone you. So for the man that is coming out, I want to see how he will balance that. Because again, you need the support of the man on the reign, right? You need the support of the man on the reign. So where do you tell people, party supporters, party members now, where, which zone or at what point do you want to tell party supporters that, you know what, I'm going to build on what this administration is doing? Which zone do you, or would you also say, either loudly or silently, that I'm going to turn things around from the way they are? It's a big challenge. It is a big challenge coming nearer home.
But I want to ask you, and I do not know what category you put him in, because when he was asked about the ambition of the vice president, he said he'd rather speak about himself.
And I agree with him.
But what do you think?
That's experience.
What do you think this does? Because there have been those who he hasn't said anything, but there are those who have said if he wants to, he's eminently qualified.
Absolutely.
And there are those who are already putting up campaigns on his behalf. But I'm assuming, you know, that eventually he decides to throw his hat into the ring. How do you think this declaration affects his own chances?
They are equals. You see, you want to look at individuals. You want to look at antecedent. You want to look at experience. But you want to look at what you have on ground. By all standards, the vice president is the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, by all standards, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you know, is what I would call a doyen in political strategy, sagacity, and what you have. One has come out to say, I want to run. For me, the other is a pretender. Again, until he comes out to say, I also want to run. And when that happens, I remember yesterday I was talking to somebody and I said, I know for a fact that the vice president will also come out. And the person said, are you for real? Will he run against his boss? I said, boss in politics? That's your associates. So, whether it is a moral question or otherwise about him wanting to run or about him, you know, coming out to run, it doesn't have a place in politics because they are both qualified eminently. One is basking in his antecedent and accomplishments when he was governor of Lagos State. The other is coming out to say, hey, look, I am vice president of this country. I've been in the saddle going to 7 years now. And this is what I have done as chairman, you know, Council of, you know, States. This is what I've done as, you know, chairman, National Economic Council. This is what I've done. So these are the things the two are coming up with. Right? So as far as this game is concerned, therefore, you are talking about morals, looking at their relationship, and there is this supposed leader and follower, Oga and Omodo, master and servants, boss and whatever relationship. But it doesn't come into what we have on ground. What we have on ground, it's about people that are qualified to stand up for nomination. So if the other man that is the vice president chooses, you know, to declare tomorrow he wants to run, you don't have to be emotional about it.
Who will you be supporting?
At this point, I don't know. Again, I said earlier that I will not begin to look at any one of them until I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more. I have what I want in my mind of what the Nigerian president 2023 will be. I will now begin to look at them one by one based on that.
Okay. Let's flip this to Lagos now. I understand there's another guest waiting, Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. We've got Honorable Ademori Kuye, who is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also of the Tinubu support group. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, with this, he said he's told the president of his intention to run, but he's not told Nigerians. I mean, being in that group of his support group, can I say this is what you've been waiting for? Because you might have known this all along, having been in that support group. Does it change anything for you in terms of, well, I mean, you heard Mr. Fawad. Are you waiting for several other people? Are you going to wait for 2 weeks to see where this is headed? Or for you, as long as he's made this announcement, this is what you've always been waiting for?
Well, thank you very much for having me again. I'm glad to be in your midst today to talk to Nigerians about the news we had from the national leader of the party, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, yesterday. I must say that I'm exceedingly glad by the news. And I'm glad, not for any selfish reason, but for the reason that This is what Nigerians have been waiting for. This is what Nigerians have been clamoring for.
Well, after all, members of the support group are Nigerians.
No, Nigerians. And I say this with all sense of modesty because, you know, looking at Ashwaju, we're not talking here about the qualification because the Constitution is clear about what a presidential candidate must have. He must be a citizen of Nigeria by birth. That means you can't be a Nigerian just because you're married to a Nigerian and then run for a presidency. You must be above 35 years old. So the qualification, there's no problem about it. Electability is another thing. Capacity to lead Nigeria at a time like this. At a time like this. And I say this with all emphasis.
Why a time like this?
At a time like this, when Nigeria is faced with such mountainous, enormous challenges, you and I know what we are facing in this country. It's in the news every day. And we have somebody who has antecedents, who has precedents, who has records to show what he's been able to do in the small geographical environment called a state. And in any case, don't forget that Nigeria is a federation. By virtue of Section 2 of the Constitution, it says Nigeria shall be a federation consisting of states and the Federal Capital Territory. We are hearing this from somebody who has displayed tremendous leadership quality in terms of economic sagacity to turn around the fortune of a state within that space of 8 years and laid the foundation of a new Lagos that has now become the envy of cities in Africa.
So now that this information is
So I'm
out
glad
there,
for Nigerians.
what about your party? Does this, because remember you're talking about having your convention. There's some people who say they've gone to court. Others are saying, no, we don't want this leadership to be at that convention, let alone think about organizing it or succeeding or continuing afterwards. So does this change the dynamics for you? Because it does appear that it could be that now that they have this information out there in the open, whatever anybody else is going to be doing in that party will be with the mindset that, okay, wait a minute, well, he is declared, so I now have to. The politics can get a lot more dynamic.
It is expected. And this is how democracy grows. You know, if we talk about constitutional democracy, it means that every step of the way there will be tests. There will be situations where people will feel that, okay, we want to do it this way. I don't think that's the way it should be done. So we're not going to fight over it. We're going to go to court. But for me, I believe that the internal mechanism of resolving such disputes will still come into play. And some of those things will probably be resolved out of court.
So help me understand this, Honorable, or a lot of Nigerians as well. So he says he has informed the president of his ambition, and then he will at another time inform Nigerians. What's the difference, really? Because he came, addressed the press. Is that not by extension informing Nigerians? So why this intrigue, this suspense? To what point, really?
There's no suspense, actually. You know, in politics, you don't just, with an experienced man like that, you don't just jump into decision-making. You have to make consultations. And that's exactly what he has told Nigerians that he's doing right now.
But that decision has been made.
Excuse me. He said, I have informed Mr. President, who is the leader of the party. And, you know, he's been so careful about all of these things because long before now, people have been on his neck that he should declare, he should declare. But he said he did not want to distract the president from the business of governance and the people that are there.
What about now? 17
Oh,
months.
of course, yes.
Wouldn't there
Of
be
course, yes.
distraction?
We're already in election, yeah.
So we're already distracted.
No. We're already in election, yeah. If you look at American democracy, by now people are already on the field. But of course, in here, we understand the time that we are. We have to be sensitive to the plight of the people. We're just coming out of the problem of SARS. We're just coming out of COVID. And you know what the government has been doing to ameliorate on the economic down that has caused for the country.
Right. I understand, Honorable, but still, he has informed the president of his ambition. He has spoken to the press, by extension, Nigerians. I mean, if you go to our YouTube page, you see how much views. So Nigerians are aware as well. So is there a possibility that he will change his mind when he informs Nigerians?
There will be an open declaration where he's going to tell Nigerians that he's going to run, and he's going to tell Nigeria what he has to offer to Nigerians. Of course, he can use that little platform.
So that's one before the party primaries?
It can be any time. It is his decision. It can be any time.
But the question...
Are you talking of the convention?
Yeah.
Before the convention? It can be any time.
We'll come to the convention, Honorable, but the question Kari asked earlier is, he has told Mr. President of his ambition to run for president. Now he's consulting. What's the consultation for if the decision has already been made that he is ambitious to be president?
The consultation is to ensure that everybody is brought into the fold. You see, in politics, before you run, this is how we do it. Because I have been into this thing before. I've run for local government election. And when I wanted to run, the first thing I did was to go and meet, because it has to be my decision first. All right? I must accept to run. I had to go and meet the party leaders at my local level. And then I started going from place to place. And then I did an open declaration at the party LGA meeting. So these are the steps. You may not know these things, but this is the way we do it as politicians.
If you can speak to this, pardon me, before we go on break quickly, is there a possibility really, and this has been speculated widely, that this might be a distraction? All these announcements, this move, the intrigues, the suspects might be a distraction, as though clearing the way for someone else. Might this change?
You see, Ashwaju is not a small fry in the politics of Nigeria. Even the opposition are going to start recalculating all the zonings that they have done before in PDP. They are going to sit down again and start rejigging. Trust me, a lot of things are going to change now. Like Chamberlain said, the dynamics are going to change now. People are going to start looking, okay, this man is here now. Who's going to run against him? All the other parties are going to start considering that.
Okay, so sounds like political chess. But we'll be back in a moment. He'll tell us more, and just hang on. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, you know, this coming after the president told us, my colleagues, in that interview that he will not name his successor, or whether he was joking or not, it appeared as though there was some sort of vacuum in people's minds saying, oh, so who's likely going to be Mr. President's successor? And bam, this announcement comes in, filling up that vacuum, perhaps in people's minds. So working on timing. But it could be that there will be other people, there are other people in the same party from the Southwest who have the same ambition. So assuming that were the case, what does this do to the question or narrative out there as to whether or not the party will support or will adopt a consensus candidate, presidential candidature. What do you think about that?
Well, the constitution of the party as presently it exists provides for consensus candidates through primary or otherwise. And I believe that you know that Mr. President knows his responsibility as a president of the country. Section 14 is very clear that the primary responsibility of the government shall be to provide security for lives and properties.
For the consensus arrangement?
No. I'm coming to the joke that you talked about. And I'm sure that if Mr. President had named anybody, he surely has the capacity.
So maybe he was saying, Mr. President, don't think about anybody else. Perish that thought. I want to succeed you.
No. You see, the visit must have been programmed even before the interview. Because Mr. President is not that kind of person. He's a very busy president. He's not that kind of person that you book an appointment with to see today, there. Tomorrow they tell you to come.
No, but this is leader versus leader.
No. This must have been in the pipeline.
But the emergency meetings, don't forget. Meetings that
Leader
happen.
to leader.
This one was not an emergency meeting. I can assure you about that. That's number one. Number two is the fact that now that he has said to Nigerians through that little platform for now that yes, he has told is the leader of the party that is going to contest. I'm sure that some other people, some other likely contestants that have been thinking that he may not contest, because we get to hear a lot of things in our political circles. I know some people who have said that except Asiwaju is contesting, except that he's contesting. If he's not contesting, I'm going to contest against any other person. Now that he has announced this, we're going to have a narrower field. A narrower
What does that mean? Is that a consensus arrangement?
It is likely to lead to that. It's likely to lead to that because, you see, why is a political party formed? Governance. It's about election. And why do you want to go into election? You want to win. How do you win? You must have a sellable candidate. You must have a candidate that has a national outlook. Tell me of any name in Nigeria, apart from Buhari, probably Obasanjo because he's been a president before, of other governors. If I asked you of the name of governors that served with Asiwaju in 1999 to 2007 in some states, you probably won't remember them again.
What do you think about the speculation?
It's a household name for crying out loud.
What do you think about the speculation as to the vice president running?
No, the vice president is qualified to run. The vice president is qualified to run. But like my brother in Abuja, in your Abuja studio just said, there might be some issue of moral questions.
What type?
About that.
About the vice president, if he wants
running
to
run against Asiwaju.
And
I say that because of my sense of the history of the two of them working together. I worked under them when I was a council chairman, when Asiwaju was the leader. And I know that even before I came into politics, I was into legal practice. I know what the Minister of Justice used to be. You know, you could go to bed without reading anything to go and do a case with lawyers from the Minister of Justice before Asiwaju became the governor. And what he was able to achieve through Professor Shibajo in the Ministry of Justice, because of course, he must give him the necessary support and logistics that he needed to turn around the workings in the Ministry of Justice in Lagos. And you know that at that time, over 13 cases were done by Lagos State against the federal government on issues of constitution.
Honorable, we're flipping this to Abuja. But are you still saying that they still have the, even though he's the vice president, but the Ashiwaju still has like the principal and what subordinate relationship with him? Is that what you're saying? Because Mr. Fuadoki believes that they're contemporaries, they're colleagues, as it were.
I can say that. The owner of this studio is a journalist. You're a journalist. All right? You're a journalist. You're contemporaries. But there is a relationship beyond that between you and that man. There's a relationship.
Even if I'm the vice president?
Even if you become a broadcaster with CNN.
Vice president.
I said, even if you leave the studio and go to CNN, you will never forget your relationship with the man you started with. Are you going to? Are you going to see him tomorrow and say, to hell with him? Will you do that?
Well, he has not told Nigerians. Let's toss it to Abuja now. Magbe.
Well, I know Mr. Mr. Okey's been listening very intently, and that's a big moral question he's raised, which you highlighted earlier. But you say, no, it's not a question of boss and employee. This is the associates. But it will seem that this moral question does indeed loom large. Is it bigger than we're making it out to be?
You know why we find ourselves where we are today? Listening to Ademori in Lagos, you can see me laughing. Laughing because very clearly, if you know Ademori Kuye well, you know that apart from being a lawyer, is also a very coherent personality. But talking is even having difficulties explaining some things. And that is the Nigeria. You can take this discussion as a mirror of what the average Nigerian, particularly the average politician's mind is. We many times than not refuse to situate issues properly. There is a relationship between the two of them, granted. On this basis, in this business, the two of them supposedly have been shadow boxing about wanting to be or not. Today, one has come out to say, I want to be. Let's wait and see if the other will come out. If it does, the issue of Oga and Omodo does not arise at all, at all. The issue is about who will be Nigerian president. But let me say this very clearly, as I always say. If we are not careful in this country, particularly in the Southwest, we will have another 1999 situation on our hands. Let not be emotional about this. Let not begin to talk about politically who is number one or who is number two. Let us look at the individual. We are at a crossroad. For goodness sake, don't let us dwell in what I call inanities. Let us look at where we have found ourselves, unfortunately.
This is where we found ourselves.
Okay. Therefore, the issue of if Aaron will be Aaron should not come out. The issue should be about, let us look for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, up to Z, and interrogate them one by one. There are several questions. All of them will need to answer. Several. I won't start that now. Don't ask.
While we, look forward to the opportunity to be able to ask
Yes.
all of these people
Yes.
who will eventually come out,
Yes.
and even those who have eventually declared their intention to
Yes.
run, critical questions.
Yes.
We must understand that political parties are the platform upon which these people will
Yes.
run. And we all understand that, the way it works within political parties, many times people like us are on the outside. We might not exactly understand. That's why we seek the insights of those of you who are on the inside to understand how this affects the dynamics. Good enough for your party, you don't have zoning as an arrangement. But some people will say that it is something that it is...
It is a convention,
exactly,
like it or not.
Exactly. So whether it is in your
discuss
constitution
it,
or not, it is something that people tend to, to follow in a gentlemanly manner.
Yeah.
So looking at all the people who you have termed pretenders, and the fact that this is no ordinary kingmaker, this is as big a kingmaker as they come, throwing his hat into the ring so early on in 2023, how does this affect the dynamics? People are still trying to wrap their head around it.
Exactly what I am saying. As a matter of fact, we will all be doing a disservice and will be very, very unfair to Asiwaju Bola Tinubu when we gloat over the issue of if Asiwaju is running. Why would XYZ want to run, or should XYZ run? In politics, in political consideration of certain issues, you don't bring emotions.
Yeah, but even you admitted...
Which is what a lot of you are trying to allude to.
Mr. Oki, even you admitted in the Yoruba adage which you quoted that what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done is to tell anybody that if you have the heart, throw your heart in.
Therefore, people like Ademori and others out there should not gloat about if Asiwaju is running, because he alluded to it that some have said, oh, I want to run, but only if Asiwaju is not running. Then such persons in the first instance are not worthy of being considered at all. We're talking about Nigeria. We're talking about the highest office. We're looking for a chief executive officer of Nigeria. Whoever feels if A is running, then I will not run. It's bringing emotion before reality. Let us be practical. I really want to be very, very fair to all, particularly Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Ademori has said so much about his capacity, his ability, his grassroots network. He should not add to it that, today, apart from President Muhammadu Buhari, possibly President Obasanjo, that there is no other Nigerian, that is that popular or that is that qualified. We will be unfair to the man. He is encouraged by his declaration yesterday. He's encouraged others who are equally qualified, who have something to offer Nigeria and Nigerians to come out. And let us leave it at that. So and the man cleverly said to you journalists yesterday that he does not want to discuss individuals, rather he wants to discuss himself and what he has to offer. It's the same thing we should look from others. Don't let us, you see, the moment you begin to look at Mr. A and not Mr. B, again, we will miss the point. We missed this point in 2007. We missed it in 2011. We may miss it ultimately in 2023. My position is very clear. Let all the pretenders come out. Now we have a contender. Let all the other pretenders come out so we can have contest. The contest, we all need to now look thorough, very clearly. You see, who the cat fits. Other than that, we will not be doing right. Ademori know, and he knows very well in his heart of heart, because between us as brothers, we've had occasion to discuss this issue. And I'm sure there are some things you will not want me to say. Because he it's speaking on behalf of a support group, fantastic. But it should also be very objective. Let us look at Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let us look at what he has done. Let's use that to interrogate his capacity for this job and see if he has it. Rather than wanting to now comparing what may or may not be. That's all I'm saying.
So let me ask you what you now make of those who will say something. Someone's been quoted. Let me just be very specific. I think this is Chief Bode George, who's also said, who's reacted to to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit to the president, and he says this declaration is a huge joke.
Ogboni Ibinka Bode George, has a right to his opinion as I do to mine. That's the way he feels. He takes nothing back. Unfortunately for Ogboni Ibinka, he's not of the APC stock. So he should keep that, until after a candidate of APC has emerged. So if it is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu who emerged, then let him come out why he thinks it's a big joke. Other than that, I won't dwell on that. I will not. It's an opinion.
Okay. So, I mean, what I mean is you certainly will not dismiss those. How will I put it now?
I'm dismissing it. I'm dismissing it in capital.
I'm not phrasing this properly. What I'm saying is that you will not take into cognizance those who dismiss this aspiration.
Absolutely not. Listen. Number one, the man is not in APC. So we're talking about a contest for nomination. So for someone outside of that family to say XYZ is a joker, in my opinion, Ogboni Ibinka is a joker.
Let's flip this to Lagos. I understand Chairman has questions for you.
Well, actually, to get Honorable Ademorin to say some things, because he says that you have a lot that you're not telling us. But from what he says as to you wanting to dismiss that there will be or should be other contestants, he says no, that cannot be the case.
I don't think he's clear about what I said in the beginning. I've said that constitutional provision is very clear about who is qualified to run as president. And as many as have that qualification are there, a lot of them in the party. But of course, it is not only about being constitutionally qualified. That was what I said. It is not about just being constitutionally qualified. Mr. Vice President has been in the saddle, like my brother rightly said. He's been in the saddle, he's worked as the chairman of the Economic Council, he's seen how the country is going. And he's ably qualified too. But I have said about other people who will have contested, and I've told us in confidence that if Asiwaju is running, they're not going to run. I'm not going to take that back.
Are some of them governors?
I'm not going to disclose
You're
that
not
to
naming
you.
names. You're just
I'm not going to say that to you here. But of course, let's go back to 2015 when the president was running. And there were quite a number of other people that wanted to run that the leadership of the party at that time had to talk to. Let's narrow the field so that we don't have so much aspirants. So that by the time we come out of the primaries, we are not seriously divided. The process of reconciliation can then be very easy for all of us. And that was what made us win the election.
So if the party says, having done it that way, and then assuming the vice president decides to run or the party says, no, get into the field. This, we know, is not just going to be up to both of them. The party will have a huge say on what happens at the end of the day. So if that happens, that VP gets into the ring and some other persons, does that change anything for you?
You see, I don't think the scenario you have painted is the kind of situation that the party wants to have itself in. And the reason is very simple. The party is always looking for soft landing, a situation where there won't be crisis, all right? They will probably suggest consensus, that the aspirants go talk to each other and see if they can agree on one or two of them. Of course, we're just talking about two people here now, Asiwaju and the vice president. There are still going to be other people the moment it is zoned to the southwest, all right? And even when it is zoned, some people from other zones are going to say, but that's a party decision, we are not abiding by it.
Do we take it for granted that it will be zoned to the southwest?
It is the most reasonable thing to do for this party. It is the most reasonable thing to do for this party.
Is that the popular position within the party?
Is that what?
Is that the popular position within the party?
Popular, even in the north. We have been to so many places in the process of this, networking, dealing with people on this TSG platform. And I can tell you that presently there are over 1,800 support groups for Asiwaju spread throughout the country.
So when you said that Nigerians are actually clamoring, that's what you meant, those support groups, not 200 million Nigerians.
Of course, in APC, we have our data, we have our party membership register, and we are presently talking to APC members because we're still going into the primary.
I just wanted to clear the air on that Nigerians because it can be quite vague. They can think, this is
the
whole country that is asking
Are we not
him to
Nigerians?
Run. Exactly. So it's good you clear that out because I think Chamberlain...
Are you saying we are not Nigerians?
No, Chamberlain asked and you sort of glossed over it. So it's good to be clear. But let's...
Are you saying you can take 20 million Nigerians out of Nigeria?
So it's good you have put a figure to it, 20 million Nigerians. But let's talk about the CV now, which is very important. I mean, we've thrown up two names, the vice president and Asiwaju. I mean, we know the vice president. He's vice president. What he's been up to in the past, 6, 7, 8 years, has been the chair of the Economic Council. He's had to sit in for the president a few times. But for the national leader of the APC, as you call him, I mean, we know he was governor from 1999 to 2007. But ever since that time, what has he been up to that people can say, okay, you've done this, then we can actually line up behind you?
Asiwaju from 2007 to now has been involved in a lot of things. Before he came into politics, he was working with Mobu. He had his own business. He's gone back to his own business. He's still doing his business. He's a staff consultant. He's an economist.
Oh, he's still a consultant?
Yes. To a lot of countries, if you don't know. To a lot of countries. Nations.
On what basis? Politically? Economically?
No, economically. To help them develop their economy.
Like what country, for example?
Many countries in Africa. Find out that yourself.
Oh, which is why we're asking you. I mean, you're meant to tell us about your candidate.
I thought you were selling your candidate.
The Ghana economy that we're talking about now, Asiwaju was part of the person, the team that helped them change. Their over-concentration on gold sales. Now in Ghana, what they are reaping in as high GR from tax is enormous. And you know what it's doing to their infrastructure there. Liberia, Sierra Leone, Central African countries, name them.
Okay.
Is there?
Well, he asked for it, so...
So
All right, we need to wrap up at this point. Honorable Ademorin Kuya is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also a member of the Tinubu support group. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me. God bless.
Thank you. I think I'm going to be taking your last words as well. For those who are still trying to wrap their heads around this, what would you be saying to them?
Don't jump into concluding anything. Let us wait and see more pretenders coming out to want to contend and we can begin to look at. As far as I'm concerned, I will want to urge Nigerians, therefore, that we should not take people on their face values, but to interrogate wella, because we need a president that will take us out of the Golgotha.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fuadoki, who's a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, and speaking to us here in our Abuja studios. We take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Tochukwu Ikenga joins us in this conversation. He is the Anambra State Police Public Relations Officer, and he's a Deputy Superintendent of Police. He joins us via Zoom. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, most certainly troubling news coming from Anambra State about those shootings. Just what exactly have you been able to find out since?
Thank you for having me. I would like to start by commending channels for always using their platform to promote our national unity, especially as it concerns security issues. What happened yesterday is a very unfortunate one. Is a case of more like a car snatching. It happened between Ekulobia and Oko boundary, that is in Orumba North. The victim was accosted by some bad elements, and they tried they tried to dispossess him of his vehicle, which he left the vehicle for these hoodlums. They attempted to start the vehicle, but they couldn't start, and that was why they set the said vehicle ablaze. On the receipt of the information, the Commissioner of Police quickly ordered the responding team from Oka here, and operations are ongoing as we speak now. We have also intensified patrols within Anambra, especially Onitsha, Oka, Ihiala, and all the environments. That's why the peace we enjoy in Anambra today is sustained.
So this has nothing to do with the purported sit-at-home order enforcement?
We got that intelligence. That's why the Commissioner of Police ordered intensive patrol on or before now. And if you have followed the trend of the security concern in Southeast in general, especially here in Anambra, you will understand that Anambra State Police Command is winning. The sacrifices of Anambra State Police personnel is as a result of the peace we enjoy today. And we are firm, and I can assure you that we are concentrating our primary duties on protecting the lives and citizens, or protecting the lives and properties of people here in Anambra.
So if you could tell us how big a threat really is that talk around sit at home, is it IPOB, ESN currently in your state?
Just like I said, every day we explore every options on whatever guys any person wants to perpetrate crime. Crime is crime, and the command is firm in tackling anything that comes up.
So how commonplace is this really when gunmen try to snatch a car and then they fail and set the car ablaze. Is that something that happens? Because I know you've seen incidents like this before. So is this commonplace for them to set a car ablaze because they couldn't snatch it?
Well, maybe reacting to the investigation is still ongoing anyway. Maybe they are reacting out of anger because our responding team came immediately, and in order to flee even the scene, that was why they have to cause that panic in order to make people scamper for safety. But normalcy has been restored in this place now.
So has this ever happened before, that a car snatching turns into car burning? I just want to know if you have statistics like that.
I don't have the statistics here, but just like I said, on whatever guys anyone wants to, crime is crime, and we are treating it as crime.
So it's just to help people situate this properly, because the narrative out there for a lot of people who actually stay within that area is that this was some sort of enforcement of the sit-at-home order. So, and they're listening to you. What can you say about that? Are you saying there's nothing of such, perhaps from your intelligence investigation?
When the intelligence came, which the command is exploring every option in dealing with all the intelligence we have gotten, especially as it regards to crime or events that want to happen. We explore every option. And what we do is, a part of what we do is we have a responding team at each jurisdiction that these thing might arise, or issues might arise. That was what gave rise to what happened yesterday. Immediately they saw our responding team, they quickly set the car ablaze and ran away.
So
but no life was lost.
So you say that the command had specific intelligence that some persons were going to try and enforce the sit-at-home strike. Is that right?
What I am saying is we have information on things that happen in the states, especially as in regards to crime. Once we have it, we have a round table meeting with other security agencies to know how we will tackle this. What happened yesterday is an unfortunate one, and what we did yesterday is part of what we are doing in order to protect Anambra State.
I know you say crime is crime, but this particular one, you say you had intelligence that some persons were going to try and enforce the sit-at-home order. That's what you said?
Yes, we had that intelligence.
Okay, so we can't assume that this is a robbery. So the persons that you have in custody, do you have anybody in custody at the moment, by the way?
Some persons in the area have volunteered information to us. They are like the eyewitness, that people that stay in the place. And we are currently working on the information. I will still get back to you to let you know how we have done about it. Having someone in custody is not the question here, but what we are doing is to make Anambra safe.
Okay, so we understand you don't want to disclose the identity of the person in custody, perhaps not to jeopardize your investigation. That's what you're saying.
I will still get back to you on it. Investigation is still ongoing.
Yeah, but if you have people in custody, it doesn't stop the investigation from going on, does it?
Yes. For now, we don't intend to disclose the identity of persons we have, because it might jeopardize what we are doing. But I will still get back to you in due time to let you know the identities of these persons that we have.
Right. So, I mean, I think this is a very important discussion, clearly, because there are fears out there. People are still thinking, what will happen next Monday? It appears as though this is a Monday thing. So it's important to put all the information out there, calm the frayed nerves, ensure that businesses and other activities, legal activities, go on smoothly. So if you could tell us, do you have some form of, I don't know, a channel open between you and perhaps IPOB where you can, because I remember that last year there was a calling off of the sit-at-home order in the build-up to the election and all that. So do you have maybe perhaps intelligence as well with IPOB saying, well, this is not us, or this is us, we have stopped this or we have not? What do you know really in interfacing with IPOB?
I get you clearly.
Okay, I'm not sure what part you got, so I'll just take the cogent part. I'm not sure if you interface with IPOB, which some people say is responsible for enforcing sit-at-home orders. And I recall last year that was called off. So in terms of interfacing or not, intelligence gathering, what are you hearing from IPOB regarding this sit-at-home or whatever it is that it is called?
If, just like you said last year, if you have followed closely on what we are doing, especially as it concerns security issues here in Anambra, you will understand that the Anambra State Command is winning. Information do come, and we treat it as the way they come, because we wouldn't want anybody in any guise to come and cause panic in the states and go scot-free. That is why Anambra State Command is exploring every option in order to sustain peace and safety that we are enjoying today.
No, you had also, you were quoted to have said the command had ordered reinforcements, from force headquarters to intensify patrols around major areas like Onitsha, Newi, Ihiala, Agwata, and Oka. Is that right?
All parts of the states.
Reinforcements.
Why I mentioned those places?
Yeah.
Reinforcement teams, they are strategically positioned in all those places.
So it means that.
What I mean.
So that also suggests that this is a serious threat, because ordering reinforcement means this is very serious.
What for us is a strategy, because we use visibility. The part of our strategy is to use visibility to detect crime, to scare any danger that might come up, to forestall any breakdown of law and order. That is also part of our strategy.
Well, Mr. Kenga, one of the things that's a little troubling about this is it's something that's been a long-term thing. On the one hand, it involves guns, and this is something that's not just happening. Just about 3 weeks ago, it was reported that there are some communities in Anambra that are panicking over frequent gunmen attacks, and a number of them mentioned specifically Osumogo, Osu Ihitekwa, my apologies, I'm not really very good with those names, Uda and Awo Idemili communities in Anambra State, who said that they are living in fear. And this is just one of those other things. How is the State Police Command managing these threats, especially because it concerns guns, which are supposed to be outlawed?
Sorry, I didn't get you clear. I didn't get you clearly.
There are communities. Can you hear me well now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you.
Good. There are certain communities in Anambra that have been complaining of frequent gunmen attacks in their communities. And some of them mention Osumogu, also Ihitekwa, Uda, and Awo Idemili communities in Anambra State, among a number of others like that who are living in fear. On the one hand, it concerns guns. On the other hand, it is something that's been a long time coming. It's been happening over time. This I quoted was just about 3 weeks ago. And the same thing, sporadic gunshots. My colleague referenced earlier that this is a Monday thing, so to speak. How come it's been, we're having difficulty stemming this tide?
Just like I said before, if you have followed closely on the security concerns here in Anambra, you will understand that the Anambra State Police Command is winning, and we are firm. Yes, we are issues in those places you mentioned, but right now I can tell you that there is peace there. Most of those challenges that you rightly mentioned have been surmounted, and those people staying in those parts of the state, I can tell you that if you maybe have one-on-one with them, you understand that there is peace there, and we intend to improve on it.
Have the guns been mopped up in those communities?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Has the police been able to mop up guns that those people were using in those communities?
We have been doing a lot of recoveries, and yes, I can categorically say that yes, we have recovered a lot, and operation is still ongoing in those communities.
Question then
remember,
would be
this place you mentioned has a border town between with Imo State. So most of those crimes that happen there are more like issues that concern transborder crime, and our recoveries are still with us. In due time, we'll have to show the public what we have done in order for them to know that actually Anambra State Police Command is working.
So could you give us an idea in terms of these weapons you've recovered? Numbers, how many of them?
I don't have the figure offhand, but we have recovered a quite number of them. And just like I said, in due time, we'll display what we have done so that people will see that Anambra State Command is firm. And if you have, just like I said, if you have followed closely on what we have been doing, you understand that Anambra State currently now is safe and peaceful.
Last time that recovery was done?
Sorry?
When was the last recovery? Can you still hear me? Okay, it appears as though that is not happening yet. But yeah, I'm told we lost him, but we'll try and get him back, because it's important that, you know, just as you highlighted, people have to have that sense of security. It's a huge concern, and part of what we also need to put out there is that, you remember before now, they had complained that the reasons why many are not able to go out there, not because they don't want to, but they don't find police authorities protecting them. So we're going to ask him as to if that has been addressed, because it's a huge concern. Yeah. And so who knows what the thinking is. He was talking about some reinforcements, but let's see if he's got a word or two about that if and when we do get him back. But it's going to be really important if they know that Mondays presents a challenge. They should prepare for it.
And you know how big a deal this is. Anambra is a major business hub. I mean, so you know what this will do to businesses, what this might do to schools, people, children, and even the older ones who have to go to school. So it's a major one if people can't go out at all. I mean, we know what happened during the lockdown, right? So this is some sort of lockdown, as it were, even though it's not COVID-related. So it's quite important for people to know what is being done security-wise and have that confidence. I mean, if people know that they're protected, hey, they'll do their business without batting an eyelid.
And part of what he might not be saying, yes, it's understandable that, remember, different police formations in those areas were attacked. So if he tells the public that he's got some of those persons in custody, they might then move in and attack those areas. So that's understandable. But that means we need to see as a country, how do we address the bigger challenge about ensuring that effective policing happens. So because if you go to some of those locations and see those police, you can't even call them police stations, so they're more like police posts.
Police posts, right.
So ill-equipped, and so that's why they can isolate those areas and attack them, because in many of those areas, those posts, those police posts are usually, they look really dilapidated.
I really hope we do get Mr. Ikenga back in this conversation, because he talked about those border communities. Now, what kind of interface are we having? He talked about the fact that there are border communities. You remember, guys, we've over and over again talked about the need to have conversations with the communities. What role do we give to the community leaders? What role, how do we interface with them? There is a PCRC, Police Community Relations Committee. How effective is that active? Is that still a thing in Anambra, in these particular communities? Now, on the one hand, okay, today we are talking about those communities that you listed to him. Previously, we talked about those other ones that, you know, was contained in a report about 3 weeks ago. Where next? Yeah, I mean, he has asked for reinforcement, that the police command has asked for reinforcement for the entire state. I thought we said prevention is better than cure. How are we able to prevent, you know, these kinds of things?
Remember the argument that went on, particularly in the Southeast too, about community policing, about the kind of policing the people said they wanted, and the kind that the governors were talking about at the time. So there was that disagreement between the IGP's office and the state governors in the Southeast.
Which goes back to, absolutely, which goes back to how are we interfacing with the communities, with the people in the various communities, to integrate them into the whole fray of community policing. In communities back in time, I think this was referenced one how or the other in that interview with the president, that look, back in time, it was the communities that protected themselves. Everyone knew everyone. The communities were strong enough, manageable enough by the various entities within the system. This one shouldn't be any less. These are interior communities. And what happens in the interiors, if we do not manage it well, it naturally spills to the urban centers, which is what you talked about, how it will affect schools, how it will affect the economy of the state. And just as you said, Anambra State is a major business hub.
So maybe the challenge is the naming, community policing. Let's call it community involvement. You know, so I mean, when they hear police, they might think, no go area. But community involvement, essentially, everyone should be involved. And also, don't forget the criminal justice part. I mean, if arrests are made, and I mean, there's improper profiling, investigation, prosecution, and perhaps to get a judgment at the end of the day, you wonder, so what happens to someone who might want to do that in future? There's nothing stopping them because they think that whole process is flawed. So we need to ensure that those arrests are made, prosecution is done, and done properly, and perhaps we get judgment.
And don't forget, guys, the governors had said at the time that concern about policing is such that why is it that an IGP's team can come into a state, carry out whatever activity they want, get back to the IG without the chief security officer of the state being in the know as to what operation is that, what's going on, how do I know, you know, all of those information. So they have that concern, and they still do, because it's still the structure of policing that we have today.
For which reason? Chief logistics officers, because that's what some of them call themselves.
Well, I remember that interview with Governor El Rufai. But don't forget that even on the front page of, I think it was the leadership newspaper this morning, is saying that governments are insisting on state police. The question then is, how is this going to pan out eventually? 1 billion naira in the budget has been earmarked for constitution review. All right? I mean, it's in the budget. So
1 billion
now
naira.
there are members of the National Assembly who work
with
their state governors.
Let's keep reviewing these documents every year.
Okay, so who work with their various governors? I mean, one way or the other, before you get into, you know, the National Assembly, you have a conversation with your governor and all of that. You know, that's all those political permutations and all of that. So are these things going to be taken to the National Assembly from the state level after having consultations with the various regions and various geopolitical zones of the country? You take it to the National Assembly, you say, okay, you want to put state police, you put it in the Constitution, and the government, the president says, I'm not going to sign it. Is the government going to be, is his veto going to be overridden?
Do you know, don't forget, the Police Act, when was it recently signed? There was that expectation, huge one about that. When they were clamoring for state police reorganization, then they gave us, they said they had passed that. The president released some money for community policing. what has happened to all of those things? Then the president says, look, I've asked them to recruit policemen from 774 local government areas in the country, saying, look, I don't actually believe in this state police. Actually, it's up to the Constitution. To whatever the law says is what I will do. But then today, the governors again insist on state police. But we've been through this before. You can't insist on the pages. They have the meetings. They have the platform if they want to address this. But the big question is, because that will be some governors, it's not all of them. Because they've told us, look, we'll have a problem agreeing in terms of what we need to do. So if they can't agree on what we should do with the policing structure in the country, that's why some will agree on paper, others will disagree, and it ends up us reading at that headline, governors insist on state police. So it's a big question. So in spite of that police act, recruiting from 774 local government areas, releasing funds for policing, has anybody seen any fundamental change in terms of policing in the country? I'm talking about results. Has anybody? Isn't that why we always say, well, we keep papering over cracks. We know what we have to do. We agree there's a problem, but we can't agree on what exactly we need to do to address the problem. It's called playing the ostrich.
Is that because we don't know?
Is that what?
Is that because we don't know?
The government has a lot of information. Don't let anybody kid you. They know what to do, but will they get themselves to do it? That's the problem. Do I have some comments coming through?
Well, it's one of those days, right? Where there's so much but so little time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a good place for us to begin to call it a morning. I don't know. Well, we've done all the talking. Mark, but you must have a word or two to say about all of these.
Well, in the meantime, I just want to say shout out to, I know it's not a shout out program, but to every policeman out there who's doing their best and holding their head up high, still trying to, do their role, perform the duty, thrust on their shoulders, the responsibility which they have to this country, particularly in places where it is difficult. Particularly in places where we know it is becoming even more dangerous to be wearing a police uniform. We have to salute them, salute their courage and say, we see you, we see the work that you're doing, and we hope that, you continue to hold a torch out. Hopefully, at some point, we will get to doing what we ought to be doing by our police, and not just our police, by all people who wear the uniform to keep this country and her citizens protected and, protected from evil people and people who do not wish us well. Well, thank you so much for watching this morning. That's what I have to say about police and where we currently are. Thank you so much for watching. We certainly will bring your comments to you as soon as we're able to lay our hands on them. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, I'm Kayode Okikele.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
I'm Train Bellinaso. Goodbye.